Welcome back, everyone, to the channel. I just want to say I appreciate you guys being here for just a couple minutes of your day. I appreciate you guys. So this is the book review of Fourth Wing. Now, you guys all know Fourth Wing, super hyped, super, I don't even know. TikTok just made this book so popular. And that's why I was like, you know what? We got to see what the hype is. Because I feel like TikTok kind of ruins books in a way where it's like it just makes like one book really popular because it's like the relationship, enemies to lovers, or there's always like one scene where everyone's like, this is why this book is good, and then the rest of the book's just not good. And that's the case with Fourth Wing. I don't see the appeal behind it. And I've been seeing a lot of people where like the male audience has read this book and they're like, yeah, it's not good, but then the female audience is like, yeah, this book is amazing. So clearly it's not written for men. Like I knew that going in, but I also went in with an open mind to see what was the hype behind it, because I've never seen a book that gets so many 5 stars. And I'm like, there has to be a reason. And I read this book and I don't see the reason. I still don't see it. What I do in every single one of my book reviews is I do my likes and dislikes. And I only got 3 likes, and the rest I just have dislikes and just a lot of things I question. Now, I feel like the things I'm questioning are going to be probably answered in the second book. Am I going to read the second book? No, I don't want to read the second book. I barely wanted to read this book. I just felt like I should, just because as someone who reviews books, I want to read popular books too. I like to read, and I like to read things that are not in my little group. I like to read out of my comfort zone. And this is actually my first time reading a book that involves dragons. So that's also kind of interesting. So the first thing I do have to say, like I said, I have 3 likes, and the rest are all either dislikes or just like, why? Why, God? And the first like I did enjoy about this book is the first half of this book was actually pretty interesting. I liked Violet a lot at first because the way that she was written was an underdog, and I liked that idea. I think it was very fun, and she did a really good job of just really grinding that in your head of how much of an underdog this girl is throughout this book. Even after spoilers, by the way. Spoilers for a book that's so popular. Spoilers. Feels like once she got her dragon, that's when she was like, all right, I'm a bad bitch now.
Yeah, boy.
Before that, she was an underdog through every single part of this, and I did like that. So that's one point for me. Dragons are cool. I don't know, they're dragons. My only complaint is I am so weird about dragons, and that's my complaint about this book, is that they can raid minds with her, and she can read their minds, and it's horny dragons, and I just don't like that. I think it's just so weird. And that's why everyone's just like banging all the time in this book, because like their dragons are banging each other. So like the people are like, oh yeah, I'm horned up now. And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Like dragons themselves are pretty cool, and I just don't enjoy when I think of dragons. I don't try to think of horniness. You know what I'm saying? We've had enough of like weird supernatural things like vampires being horny, but why do I have to like be involved with dragons? Dude, I'm sorry, but I don't want that. But like the dragons are cool because they're freaking dragons. So I'm conflicted. My last like about this book is the premise of this book. I think the premise of it is actually just really cool. It's essentially Harry Potter, except you can ride dragons. That's about it. So now we're gonna get into the dislikes and the questionable things. It's more just like, why? So she explains how this is a school, and where everyone's going there. But if this is a school where they just got done with a war, why the heck are all these rebels in it? And why are all the rebels like the best writers, and they are like the most qualified people in all of this? It literally makes no sense. Like, to me, if I had rebels that, after the war is over, like the rebels are alive and stuff, why would you want them to be trained as soldiers? Because then they'll probably just rebel against you before. That's just so, it doesn't make any sense. It literally makes no sense. Like, historically speaking, it would never make any sense. Usually they just like off them. off, you know, like that's usually what happens. So that didn't make any sense to me. The thing is just like, it doesn't make sense to me. And I'm trying to make sense of all this, but I can't. So right at the rip, at the first chapter, you meet, you know, Violet, and her mom was like, yeah, you're gonna be a dragon rider. Even though she spent most of her life being a scribe and just focused on that, because she is too short and her body's like built not for dragon riding. And she has said that plenty of times. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. Her mom's like, no, you're gonna be a dragon rider. Because I was a dragon rider, your sister and your brother were. And I'm like, why does that matter? Like, I don't know. I feel like if you want to do something where she has to be a dragon rider, why don't you do it where she like runs into the dragon, or like something happens where she meets a dragon rider and they die and she has to pretend? I don't know, something. But this just felt so forced and it just makes no sense. Granted, maybe the second book will make sense, but like I said, I ain't gonna read it. So that, I just didn't like that. And another thing that literally I was like, all right, here we go, because they were talking about how like her mom's like the head honcho essentially, and Mira, her sister, and her were going to sign up, and she's like, we can't tell anyone who you are. No joke. 2 seconds later, everyone's like, oh my god, it's Mira. That's Violet. That has to be Violet. And Mira's like, yeah, I'm Mira. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you're gonna sit there and tell me you have to keep everything secret, but then you just openly are like, yeah, I'm her. You know, and I'm like, you just took away everything. Because then you meet this guy named Zayden. Yeah, Zayden. And Zayden is like a rebel, well, his dad was or something, and his dad was killed by Violet's mother. So it's enemies to lovers instantly. Instantly, I'm like, oh god, here we go. Violet's like, I gotta keep quiet. I don't want him to find out who I am. And instantly, like I said, everyone found out who she was, even though she literally said, I need to keep quiet. I'm like, if she was signing up, wouldn't she go with a different name even? So then when she would show up after she completed the first little task, wouldn't she then just be quiet and just use a fake name? And then when she met Dane, tell Dane, hey, I'm keeping it on the DL. I don't want anyone to know who I actually am. That's just me. I feel like that would have made so much more sense. Because then wouldn't it be like if Zayden found out who she really is? Like, you would eventually, like, she could have organically fallen for Zayden, even though, and Zayden wouldn't know who she actually is, and that would create more conflict. But it doesn't matter because they just like hook up anyway, and I'm just like, oh my god. So it just really frustrated me with just the way all this, it felt so forced, all of it. It never felt organic. It never felt like, oh, this is gonna be perfect, because I think it's like 5 books. I think that's the plan for the series, and I'm like, why? Like, I feel like this could have happened, like, their relationship, or whatever you want to call it, could have actually happened in, like, book 2 or 3, and you just sprinkle in these things. But no, she, as soon as she saw him, she was like, oh, it's him, I hate him. But also, he's kind of hot. And then she hooks up with the dragon that his dragon hooks up with, so then they're like, I'm like, oh, dear God. And another thing in this book that oh, God, I'm gonna get a headache from just thinking about this. But another thing is, while I was reading this book, I was just, so Zayden keeps threatening on killing her, and he tells other people, no, only I'm going to kill her. And I'm like, just do it. This school makes no sense, because they're like cool with kids just killing each other. Even though you are in war, you don't do that. You don't kill soldiers. Why am I getting so mad about this? I am getting so frustrated over this book because it literally makes no sense. Why would you want to kill soldiers even though you are in war? Like, I get it, soldiers die from riding dragons, but like, they're like training to get stronger and stuff, and they're like, one of the kids named Jack just kills a kid, breaks his neck, and I'm like, wait a minute, I gotta understand this. You're telling me that we are in war. You have rebels at a college training your soldiers in war, even though the rebels are the ones that are like, yeah, F you guys. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I swear to God, everyone's going to be like, you got to read book 2, it makes more sense. But I shouldn't be questioning these things of why it doesn't make sense off the rip. Like, it shouldn't make sense. Like, you can't make it make sense. I guarantee the second book probably explains it, and it still makes no sense. Like, the logic behind it probably makes no sense. And I just sat back, I'm like, why? And the thing is, though, it's like, Xanon keeps telling her, I can kill you whenever. I'm like, then freaking do it, dude. Especially because before that happens, before she gets that dragon that hooks up with his, there's no reason for him not to do it unless he's like in love with her. You know what I'm saying? Because right off the rip, he hates her and she hates him. And I'm like, oh God. And the other thing is too, that really bothered me, and that's how I'm like, oh my God, this is probably gonna be like a love triangle. Is now these are things that I guessed before anything was starting to happen. I was making a lot of guesses. And that was kind of true. But anyways, Dane was overly protective, and I was like, all right, so Dane and her are gonna have a fight, and she's just gonna be closer to Xanon. And look what happens. The book felt so predictable in so many aspects where I'm like, oh my gosh. And it just didn't make sense. I could not. Like, there were so many, every time I would read a chapter, I'm like, why would this even happen? And then another thing, so I have done this in my books. So, and my editor would freaking tell me all the time. She would write little notes on it and just says, this is showing and not telling. You are telling but not showing. Show me what you're talking about. And that's what she was doing a lot in this book. Now, there was elements where she was talking about how Violet is really smart. And instead of showing us, she told us instead. And how she did it, at first I was like, all right, this is smart the first time. And then she just kept doing it because all she was doing is just dumping so much information for us to learn about the lore. Instead of just organically doing it, she's just boom, 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 dropping it. And I feel like so Violet, when she's in class, wouldn't that where you would want to like make these discussions to show how intelligent she is about these? I just had like a brain fart. This book is making me have like a brain fart. What she was doing is when Violet would be upset or anything, she would spiel out lore of the world. And at first I was like, all right, that's kind of cool. And then the more she just kept doing it, I'm like, oh, so you're just dumping some info for us. Thanks. And I don't know, I felt like it was a really lazy way of just info dumping. Granted, I have been reading The Wheel of Time, and he does a lot of info dumping. But his way of doing lore is a lot different because he actually has the characters just conversate about it. And I've always feel like that's a better way to do it and kind of sprinkle in lore throughout the book. She doesn't do that. She's just, Violet's like running, and she just starts, dragons have wings. Riders have to use this. And it's just like, why are you telling me all this? Why are you not like having her get trained to tell us this stuff? You know what I'm saying? Or one of the newer characters that you introduce that might not know anything with dragon riding, talk and be like, oh, I don't know what to do. And then Violet could have been like, oh, well, and as you do this. You know what I'm saying? That would make more sense to show how intelligent she is. Especially when she's in classes. Why don't you just do that? The only thing that it really showed how smart she is when she was like sneaking and poisoning people's food to help her survive longer. And I still don't understand that. I couldn't imagine, like, if you read Harry Potter, right? I don't know why I'm still on this, but it's just been driving me nuts thinking about this. And I haven't stopped thinking about it for a while now. I finished the book like 2 days ago, and it's just still in my mind. So I compared it to Harry Potter. And Harry Potter, I was like, all right. So say in Harry Potter, Voldemort has returned, right? Dumbledore in book 1 is like, all right, Voldemort's back. We're going to start training you fools, but better be careful because we'll just start killing you fools. You can kill each other unless you are asleep. Then you can't. And I'm like, you know how ridiculous that sounds? Like, it makes no sense. Like, especially to me, like thinking, I'm like, all right. So in Harry Potter, Voldemort has returned. You know, Voldemort is slowly coming back. I couldn't imagine Harry Potter that these these characters are just killing each other because they can. Like I don't know. Like the everyone, talks about the romance and stuff. I think the romance is really mid. But the sex and stuff, whatever. I assume because they're all in their 20s, they're horny. We've all been early 20s. Just how it is. Especially when you're in a college full of 20-year-olds and you guys are just horned up because you're connected to dragons that are apparently horny all the time too. I still don't like that aspect. I want to think of my dragons just being horny all the time. It's just like I don't want to think about my vampires being shiny and obsessed with 18-year-old high schoolers. Anyways, we'll talk about Twilight later. Believe that. And that's what my thought was. I'm like, I couldn't imagine just that happening in Harry Potter. Or even like Percy Jackson. I couldn't imagine Percy Jackson showing up in the first book. And they're like, yeah, here you just gotta be safe. Always watch your back, because someone might try and kill you. And you're just like, why? This makes no sense. I need to stop talking about this. I have to stop talking about that because it's just so dumb. It literally makes no sense to me, and I will never understand it. If you guys made it to the end of my ranting, I do appreciate it. Make sure you guys check out all my socials down below. And of course, make sure you guys stay safe, stay hungry, and tell someone you love them. I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.